Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show. I'm Ted Bonnet, and there's an empty chair next to me. Phil's gone. He's gone. He's cavorting out in the East Coast, somewhere on a pleasure boat today. I think the Chesapeake Bay or something like that. At least that's what I could see in the photograph. Phil's out having a good time. God bless him. You're here for a good time, too, because we are going to have a very interesting conversation today with a good friend of ours, Keith Robinson. Keith's one of these guys who has done a little bit of everything. You saved David Bowie's butt on a tour once. You made Frank Sinatra come back from the dead for a fantastic show at Radio City Music Hall. You cut short films for Saturday Night Live for the first 5 seasons.
The first promo that was ever of the show.
And the first promo ever.
Nobody knew what the show was, and neither did I.
Of course, you were in New York at the time.
Yep.
And you're also, technologically, you've pushed the boundaries all your life, too. You were the first person in New York City to have electronic film editing with Avid.
Yes.
And I know that we broke some boundaries with the movie, the documentary we made, you executive produced, called Mau Mau Sex X, and we did that on brand new technology. Apple even couldn't help us with their own technology and told us we were on our own. Good luck. And thank God you figured it out, because you're also a genius, a Berkeley...
A dropout.
Interesting story about how you got into the film business as well because of Berkeley. And then you've also worked with 16 Academy Award-winning directors.
Had worked in my place in New York.
Woody Allen, Francis Ford Coppola, John Schlesinger, Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
And, of course, your friendship with James Brown and Rumble in the Jungle, When We Were Kings, the Oscar-winning documentary about the Muhammad Ali George Foreman fight 50 years ago now, that you turned into a movie and won an Academy Award. And your reward was quite interesting as well. We're going to get into the sordid details of that. So glad you could make the show.
Thanks.
One of the fascinating things about you is that you remember your birth.
I remember being in the hospital when I was where I was born. Yes. My life has become what it is mainly because I had a tough first day. I was born with a ruptured liver. The obstetrician took me out the wrong way. I came out feet first.
And he was drunk, right?
And apparently it was late at night. It was like the 11-something at night of December 2nd. So I wound up with a ruptured liver.
So he was at a bar somewhere when he got the call?
Who knows?
Oh, my God. Okay.
But what happened was that they had to operate on me the day I was born. And, I had a ruptured liver, and bottom line is, when you're a baby, you didn't get anesthesia.
Oh, my God.
They gave you this curare derivative that just paralyzed you, so you couldn't respond.
Squirm.
Yeah. And that's it. So I received last rites for my first time.
Wow.
Then. And
oh my God.
But I survived, and I was in the hospital for well over a month. And years later, I find out I kept having this dream, this vision, as if you were lying on a bed and you were looking at some tall building, tall window with an arched top. And it was blurry. Mm-hmm. So I'm seeing this blurry light image.
Yeah, because newborns can't really see.
No, so that my dream was always like this blurry image. And I finally realized at one point, it came to me like, oh my God, that's what it is, this window. And I went and told my parents, and they said, who told you that? And I was like, no one told me that. And
wow.
And so that was, so I did have that memory from that.
You have an interesting theory as to why, as a newborn, you would have a memory, a visual memory.
Yeah, because I think that all the activity, the surgery, all that goes on, I think it triggers your brain to be, triggers you to be much more perceptive.
Because you're being operated on without any anesthesia. So
you're in danger. It's like you're on alert.
We're bringing this up because it had an impact on your life, obviously. You survived. But also because it nearly took you out again as a teenager.
Yeah.
And that fostered this attitude of...
Yeah. Well, basically... I had a good life. My parents were terrific, and when I was 14, I was all excited about going to a slot car track the next day, and I suddenly had this pain at night, and people know the phrase "to crawl the walls," crawling the walls. I was trying to crawl the walls. That's how in pain I was. And fortunately, my parents convinced the doctor to take me to the hospital. And I went there and I had an out-of-body experience where I actually could see above when they had me on the operating table. And then the one where you're seeing the white dot down the hall or whatever, And I woke up 2 days later with my parents standing over the bed and a priest giving me last rites for my second time.
Oh, my God.
And that changed my life in that I felt that you could go at any time. And so I always was inventive and making and doing things. That was my life. I loved making things. So it made me have the idea that I'm just going to make things. I'm going to do what I can do or put myself in situations to be able to do things, whatever it is, at whatever chance I'm going to take.
To prove that, one of the things you worked on, the Sinatra project, 60 Minutes devoted an entire segment to your quest and discovery and creation of this, Sinatra Afterlife concert.
Yeah, when the idea of it first went to Radio City Music Hall. They did that. It made me take chances. Like I only applied to one school. I applied to Berkeley, and I'm from New York, so I'm an out-of-state person looking to apply there. I worked in electronics stores, and I taught myself electronics, and I repaired stereos and stuff next to guys that were like 30 years old, or whatever, and I was like 15. I went to Berkeley and I filled out my class card and then found out that because I never read instructions, that the classes I had chosen all had a 2 in front of them. So those were graduate classes and they told me I couldn't take any of those. So I just stumbled through Berkeley for a while. I felt I could be someplace better. And I was disappointed too, but I even took bowling. So the thing is that in school, there was a point where there were riots, the People's Park 2 and all this. And
now this is the campus unrest, of the late 60s.
Yeah, and it was thrilling. It truly was thrilling. There was a time when you could take a garbage can lid and hold it over your head because the police might actually be shooting rubber bullets at people on the street to clear the streets. I wound up getting a job helping students make films, which I had never done before. And so I sat in the library on the weekend to read a handbook for the independent filmmaker and read the book, showed up for work, loaded the camera with film, lit the subject, which was some kind of rodent on drugs for a class in school, shot it and fell in love with it. And also with the fact that I toured with the CBS crew from Los Angeles, I believe, that was dealing with the riots issue. It just all seemed so exciting. So I decided that I wanted to do film. I don't know how it happened, but I did. And I wound up with this tremendous opportunity of working for $50 a week on commercials at a commercial editing facility. And the great thing about that was that it's one thing to want to do features, but you do the same process only once through the process of making a film over a year. And in this case, I got to do it 200 times on 200 commercials in a year. that led me into my business. I decided, screw it. I'm going to be an editor, and I'm going to have a business, and I started it.
So you really made your mark as a film editor.
Yes.
Okay, and you ended up starting a company in New York called Phantasmagoria.
Yes, which means a series of dreamlike images.
Yes. You've always had this kind of thing going around you where you just have really smart people hanging out because you create an atmosphere of creative looseness.
Yes.
It's not uptight. It's not like, you walk in and you're on the clock kind of thing.
Never.
And so this allowed artists to feel free enough to do this. And you also mentored a lot of people too, like Skip.
I had
Skip Lievsay,
yes,
who is an Academy Award-winning sound mixer, who won the Academy Award for Gravity, and he
He got his start there, basically.
He got his start and has ended up doing all the sound for the Coen Brothers movies, almost all of them, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
No, he...
I just watched A Serious Man last night. Mm-hmm. Oh, my God.
Well, it's interesting. That was part of it. I mean, Skip is absolutely a wonderful human being, and everybody felt welcome. And because of the way the place was, our front door was... People would come up in the Film Center building in 9th Avenue and put their ear to the door trying to see if they could hear certain people that had come to the place. They'd get knocked over sometimes when the door opened. But I mean,
so Saturday Night Live happened.
Well, that was all by chance because Jim Signorelli, who stayed with Saturday Night Live until not that long ago, as a producer and managing the produced pieces that are inserted into the show. He came to me because I only had a 35 millimeter machine. Mm-hmm. Everybody else in New York or almost, other than commercials, all filmmaking, a lot of filmmakers, documentaries, it's in 16 millimeter, and I had a 35 machine. He wanted to shoot the promo, and that came to me, would I be willing to edit it? It's totally by chance. So we worked together, and then we worked together a bunch for 5 years.
I went and saw Saturday Night yesterday ahead of this because you had said you went to see it. Jason Reitman's film about the very first episode of Saturday Night Live leading up to it, the last 2 hours before airtime.
Well, yeah.
Something like that.
The day of.
The cast was amazing.
It was.
Everyone did incredible performances. John Baptiste did the music. Amazing performances. I went to see it because you said it was remarkably accurate.
It was. I mean, in the course of the show, the original cast stayed for 5 years. At the end of 5 years, everybody left. People would come over, they'd hang out. Sometimes they'd come to my office. I mean, a few times where, it's just the whole cast, everybody's there, and it was, just nice and fun. Mm-hmm. And it was loose. It was like be at a club, but I'm in the room editing something, and
And this was the 70s in New York.
70s,
and so there's a lot of cocaine, a lot of pot.
Yeah, and which was all as if it were natural. I mean, it's no different from having a drink. I think there was a razor and a mirror and a straw on almost every table, I think.
This is before the days of crack.
People did it, and it wasn't like crazy. It's just something you did.
Right.
And the people, you got to know them across 5 years, even if you didn't spend tremendous amounts of individual time. The people I spent time with, more probably John
Belushi?
Yeah, and they'd come when we're doing an edit that related to them, and that was it. But the beauty of the film is that there's not one utterance from any of the characters that's off character from who they were.
Yeah,
because you'd get to know people that much that you'd say, like, they wouldn't do that. I mean, but it was really shocking.
I interviewed Dan Aykroyd about into the second season. Mm-hmm. He was filming a thing with Chevy Chase in the neighborhood, so I went to interview them. Chevy was what Chevy's reputation is. He was exactly what, unfortunately,
is in the movie.
Yeah. But Dan was genuinely kind, funny, and playful. Yeah. He was such a great guy. Yeah. He is such a great guy.
I thought the funny thing with John was that when they did Blues Brothers, he came. He brought me. He just brought me a poster for the Blues Brothers, and he taped it up on the door and stuff. I mean, he just felt like in place there, Then after it was out for a week or two, he came in with a ballpoint pen and just carved $signs into the poster. It just ruined it. He just, what was nice is to see somebody as themselves.
Yeah.
And he and Dan had a bar, the blues bar downtown. And so we'd go there after the show sometimes. And that was great because it was like a speakeasy. You go up to the door and it slide open and then you go in. And
I really recommend people to go see Saturday Night while it's in theaters.
Yeah.
It's doing kind of lousy business. I mean, it's made $4 million so far.
But what doesn't do lousy business these days?
It's like there were 4 people in the theater again.
Yeah.
And one thing that knocked me out, because we were talking about shared experiences in media and how that's a bygone era, with the exception of music concerts. One of the self-defeating things, at the AMC theaters now, they run this promo for the movie experience with Nicole Kidman. Mm-hmm. She walks in like a glamorous film star and walks in and says, it's just so wonderful. She gets teary-eyed about the experience of being in a theater and how great it is. There's nobody else in the theater in that clip. She's all alone in the movie theater because they were trying to play to the fact that, no, you're not around noisy, stinky people. It's just like at home. You're lost in the movie. But they're showing a completely empty movie theater in the promo. And that's such a switch from 20 years ago. Where do you see this going?
Well, the eyeballs have more places to go.
Yeah.
And that's always been a game of getting eyeballs, and, whether it's promotion of movies or whatever. Mm-hmm. But the lack of shared experience is a big loss. And for that, because of the reason I can't alter it. I mean, I have ways of getting attention of things. Like I use YouTube, and I have over 70 million views on my channel. And, that's all great. But actually what I love now probably more than anything is theater. It's the same principles that go into theater as it was for film. In all those situations, when you do any project, I look at the situation. I want to know what it is you want to say, who you're communicating with, and what the venue is. And the venue could be, an auditorium. It could be television. It could be
a pair of AirPods.
Any of those things.
Yeah.
And so those are beginning points.
The principles of storytelling and presentation.
Yes, and the second set of principles for storytelling presentation is the who, what, where, when, how, and why, which a lot of us probably heard that in elementary school, like the 5 W's or whatever, right? And that's the way I always look at things or start with things. It's, a lot of people come in and go, I just need you to edit this. I need you to do this or do that. But I want to know all those other parts. And sometimes the people that come in don't have those parts together, but you can help to bring those parts to it. That thinking is universal through whatever format or whatever way of showing you that you have at hand. And now, since the absence of the shared experience, you get to have the shared experience in theater, because even if the audience is only 1,500, 2,000 people or whatever, right? You see them walk out. They're all chatty, and they all have that, and they feel the need to go tell others that there's a place that you can go to see the same thing that they saw.
But it's still happening in some small areas, like Sphere in Las Vegas, as we enter the spatial age of computing.
Yeah.
And entertainment, spatial entertainment, that requires, well, for now at least, you have to go to the venue to experience this wild technology.
Yeah.
And that word of mouth has been huge for them.
It's a lot more to share than you have when you just say, oh, you should see this TV show. I mean, you can share with somebody that or a couple of friends, but have that bigger audience all seeing much more. We were talking before about shared experience.
Right.
And one of the things about that is that in my office in New York, there was a shared experience in the work world and how people worked. And people came to an office to have access to equipment. People did, and now that also has changed because you can, back then, it could cost you
Right.
hundreds of thousands of dollars to have the equipment that you would need to work on to do your film, and you would come to a place that had that. And when for editing, it used to cost, like when it became Avids or nonlinear or digital editing, a machine would cost $30,000 to $80,000 in the beginning. And now it costs you about $2,000 and $55 a month to pay like an Adobe or whatever. And so people work from home.
Right.
People don't go to common points and share in that. And back then, to have all these talented people in a room where they could share their ideas, be enthused by each other, was just something so special, so beautiful. And that's something that's missing in the creative process now. And
there are some co-ops, I think, where there are groups of people that understand that. Because you're right, it's like certain very robust editing software like DaVinci Resolve is free.
Yeah.
All you need is a decent computer, and that's not even all that expensive either.
No.
But the problem that you're talking about, really frees people, but at the same time, it contributes to the isolation.
Yes.
And you say you've had 70 million views on your YouTube channel.
Yes.
But the economics of that is if you had 70 million people come to the theater to see something you did versus what YouTube pays you.
No question.
I mean, that's a huge thing, We should talk a little bit about David Bowie.
Yeah, with David Bowie, they had this idea.
Sound and Vision Tour.
Yeah, I guess I was just approached to determine how one could shoot David Bowie performing a song and have it synchronize on stage. Mm-hmm. I figured that out. I mean, it's part of my electronics thinking, whatever.
So he was about to go on tour with Sound and Vision.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is what happened. It all came together, and then I got a phone call the night that they were loading in at the Teaneck Armory in New Jersey, which I never, before that night.
Huge building.
They're huge.
They rent that for rehearsal.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So I get a call saying it's not working. And so
the technical synchronization between
they
him
just didn't
performing live on stage and the film version of him singing projected behind him.
Yeah. Well, basically what would happen, the point of it was that he would be performing on stage. And in that tour, he dressed very simply. It was a very simple stage. Mm-hmm. And what had been acquired for this purpose in advance of me figuring out how to do it was a 40-foot seamless scrim. And a scrim is something where if you light somebody behind that scrim, you can see them.
Right.
And if the light goes out on that person, you don't see them. But it also can act as a screen surface. What happened was that night, they call up saying, it's not working. We're sending you a car to take you to Teaneck. And so I wait, car shows up, they drive me to Teaneck. I find the entrance. I walk in, and the whole mass of people on this tour are standing there staring at me as if I'm walking to the gallows. And they told me what the situation was, which I already knew from the phone call. I looked, checked the equipment, looked around, walked back. They're still standing there as in mass, and I just said, I can fix this. I didn't see David Bowie there that night, but he was behind me. And he said, get him anything he wants. I had to have him play each song twice.
So he did his whole set for you twice.
Basically, yeah. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it worked. He was so nice. He had that attitude. We have something here. We've got to get it done. We're going to do this, and let's do it calmly, and let's get and work our ways through this. And that's the way he was.
He was that way.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, there's a wonderful documentary on Max right now about his last 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's really worth seeing because not only does that humanity come out, but it's pretty amazing to see an artist of his magnitude face his demise.
Well, one thing I can say, I've had enough experience with well-known people or whatever that you learn that that a lot of the greats, most all the greats in my experience, are fantastic. They may be funny, they may be a little goofy sometimes, but they're great people.
He sent you a Christmas card every year.
Yeah, he did.
From then on.
He did. He sent me when I got the Christmas card, I'm going like, wow, that was. And then when he toured, because they went to Montreal that day, and then when they came back around to New York, called me up, sent a car. I had my seats at the thing. I'm sitting there watching the projection. Said this was film projectors doing this. This wasn't synchronized video at the time. And what was so funny was that in the New York Times they referred to it as an example of electronic wizardry.
Well, it was. I mean, when you think about film had to come up to speed.
Yeah, right? yeah. It had to be synchronized, and the way that worked was off the drums because he had there was a click track, so the drummer knew. And he went along with it. In fact, both the shows, that and the one I did in London, was the Sinatra estate, both same method. There's people that love their work and people that get excited about it, but at the same time have focus. I love these people, and I've gotten to know so many people like that. But some of them are quirky, and I have to say this just to say it. One time, I got a call because, people know you deal with a lot of people. And so I got called to go to an office to help Marlon Brando view some Indian footage. Okay. And so I'm in the office there and I set the machine up and I just waited for him. All I'm doing is helping him to view something on an editing machine, right? And I look out the door, and he's being escorted down a hallway there. But everybody's running in front of him, trying to move chairs and this and that, and he's looking like enough already in his attitude. So he comes in the room, and I have him sit down and run the machine. And he was totally happy. I just put my hand on his hand and said, you turn it this way to go forward, this way to go back. We sat. He looked at what he wanted to look at. And afterwards, he felt so comfortable, we went to a strip club together. But after the strip club, he was going back to the Pierre Hotel in New York. And we're talking about maybe getting together the next day. And as we do, one guy walks up and down and back up the street again because they recognize him.
Right.
And as the guy comes by for the third or fourth time, Marlon dips his head in the way of the guy. Just tilts his head in 2 feet in front of the guy walking for his third or fourth trip. I thought that was hysterical. We finished our conversation. We hail a cab. He goes up to the cab driver and puts his face right in the window. So the cab driver looks at him, stunned that it's Marlon Brando. And he gets back in the car, slides in down behind the driver so he can't look at him anymore and giggles.
Wow.
So because he can't see it. So several months later, I wound up working with Jack Nicholson. And we came to Los Angeles. We're finished with this dubbing. It's another thing. And we're on Highland. And Highland used to have a median down the middle of the road. So we're crossing the street from east side to the west side of the street. And he's standing there to my right. Cars are coming down. He starts dipping his head into the traffic so that people could see that it's him. And I was thinking, wow, they have that in common.
This is Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show. I'm Ted Bonnet. This is Keith Robinson. Let's talk about the Sinatra thing. This is what gave you your own segment on 60 Minutes because of what you did. The Sinatra estate approached you about finding archived footage. This is a fascinating story.
The idea was basically how to have Frank on stage with a live band.
All right, this is after Frank's died.
Yes.
And the idea is to go to a Radio City Music Hall, or was it
someplace?
Was it O2 in the West End or something in London?
No, Palladium. I did it at
Palladium.
All
right,
Palladium.
And so this was idea to bring Sinatra back.
Alive on stage.
Alive on stage, not as a hologram at the time, but as a projected image with a full orchestra live in the theater playing to him singing.
They had this image to have him as an image with a live band. And so what I did is they came to me and asked me, what do we need? So I wound up going through his vault. I'd go through all the elements there. I'm like, nothing here. I mean, and then I saw these cans on the floor that were apparently destined to leave. and we got a machine in the vault. And there it was. He had shot, because he was getting popular in the 50s again, that he shot in 35 millimeter himself, just singing a cappella, because he just had the piano downstage for tempo. That was it.
So what he wanted to do is preserve his performance in
So,
the highest quality available at the time, which would have been 35 millimeter film.
Exactly that. So we covered the film. There's a process to doing that, and it was funny because nobody knew really that process, but I did. It was with Glenn Miller's arrangement. We had a 20-piece orchestra. I wound up doing the show in London. It was attempted in Radio City Music Hall, and then they got an arrangement to do it in London, and that's what I did. I went there, and
So you synced it up like you did the Bowie tour.
Yeah, and basically it's a click track. So what happens is that the conductor has the click track. So as soon as the track that's running, the guide comes, bing, it's click, 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 and the conductor does it. And I remember the first day of me seeing that, the 20-piece orchestra sitting there, conductor comes in, everybody ready? This is their first time to play together because they hired all great musicians, not a group of people that had played together. It came out and you're like, oh my God, that's spectacular.
I think you can search online. Probably you could find the 60 Minutes segment, which explains the story about Sinatra.
Tony Bennett came to the show, and at the break of the show, I would go to this room where any special guests would go to, and I remember he asked if it could be done for him. And at that moment, I suggested that we record him in 3D for the future, but it never happened. But anyway, it was really a great time, and also working in England is a great experience.
Yeah,
I had worked in England the first time when I was a kid. That I worked at Pinewood because I was asked to re-edit a feature for Columbia. And, the work ethic there is mind-bending. I mean, it's just magnificent.
We got to get to Rumble in the Jungle, When We Were Kings, because that's an amazing story about, this is an Oscar-winning documentary you did, and a real tale of show business woe. Oh, my God. One of the great all-time documentaries, which was called When We Were Kings.
Yeah.
This was a documentary of the Rumble in the Jungle, the famous heavyweight fight between George Foreman and Muhammad Ali in Zaire.
In 1975, they came back from Zaire with the footage, and I was asked if I could rent them a machine. And my business had built up pretty quick.
Yeah, you were making a good living in New York renting out Avids.
I would rent Avids, but I was also the big thing. My thing was the transfers, the audio transfers and stuff like that. Spike Lee, when he was a student, used to go work at the editing machine upstairs, another editing rental place, and he'd come downstairs. I remember that, to do transfers for his stuff. But they rented a chem from me, an editing machine that has multiple screens. I saw the footage by chance, just a little bit of it. They were on the Upper West Side of Manhattan editing, and
of the fight in Zaire.
Of the footage from the event in Zaire was a huge festival. It was like a Woodstock, but in Africa. Mm-hmm. And you had great performers like B.B. King, James Brown. All really fantastic performances, and then there was to be the fight. And the fight was supposed to be coordinated to the event of the music and all. Mm-hmm. But then there was the accident before, and so the fight was delayed.
Accident?
With Foreman got cut.
Mm.
And so anyway, I saw the footage. I never saw it again. They returned the machine, and the film never happened.
Mm-hmm.
And Leon, who is
Leon Gast.
Yeah, as the director.
Yeah.
Basically what they had in Africa were like 5 great documentary crews because there was so much to cover, and they were allocated to cover what they did, and so you got fantastic material. But anyway, the film never happened then. Leon comes to my office, and as we've already mentioned, the more casual use of drugs, and Leon was in that business at this point.
In the procurement, pharmaceutical,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he showed up, and I'm sure it was to provide some element to somebody at the office working there at that point. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, whatever happened to that film? And he goes, oh, nothing, it didn't, And I said, well, where's the footage? He had some in his basement. And I said, well, why don't we bring it here, to look at? And this was in October of 1983. So he brought the footage, and I wound up tinkering with it, and transferring what I could and just viewing it, just spending time with it. Eventually, there was enough material to have a sense that something could come of it. There was originally 400,000 feet of film. The practice, hanging with Ali, because a lot of the good footage came after the cut, and so because they still hung in there, they had to stay there in Kinshasa, and so anyway, I got to the point where I'm thinking we're going to make this happen. It started to put music pieces together, and the music pieces wound up making DVDs of music. B.B. King, Fania All-Stars were there, Pointer Sisters were there, and it was just fantastic.
Yeah.
These things are still distributed, and they exist. But then there's the idea of the film itself, and so we started to put that together, and I realized, you know what? We need more information. So I hunted down legal materials and all that stuff.
So you took it upon yourself to take this footage that was just sitting idle.
Yeah, I paid for all the transfers to transfer it all to video.
And then you edited what became When We Were Kings.
Yes, and Leon would help a little bit. It got to the point where you knew that you wanted the people that were at ringside to be interviewed about their experience of being there for this fight. And that element was not part of it yet. And so I wanted that to happen, but I needed to clear the rights and everything beforehand. So I went to this lawyer who was going to do this, and in fact decided to make him a partner with Leon, myself, and him, because at the beginning, Leon and I established ourselves as 50-50. I mean, it's his...
On the film.
Yeah, on the film. Anyway, the situation worked out. The lawyer wound up making himself the copyright holder of the film.
The lawyer did.
The lawyer did.
Nice.
And he did that with Leon's knowledge and not mine. And we actually sat in a room, read through the contract that was for the three of us. And then he goes, well, do you want to do this? And I said, yeah, let's do it, because we read it out loud with the three of us. And we went behind his desk, and he had all this stuff on the front of his desk, which he normally didn't have. And he had collected the papers from us. So we all got up to his desk, and he just flipped the corners of the pages, and we signed the contracts, all of us.
Right.
And then we sat down, and he goes, I'll hold the contracts for you guys. Well, like that. Well, I wound up having to deal with something with the lawyer, and all of a sudden I get sued for $5 million for interfering with his copyright. He had switched the contracts that we signed to another one that made him the copyright holder.
A shyster lawyer.
Yeah.
You should have called Muhammad Ali. He would have taken care of the business.
Well, no, I went to these top lawyers. I'd go, and basically you describe the situation as I just did. And you tell them, and they go, oh, okay, yeah, we're interested. You have to get to see if they're interested at all. And then at the end they say, so who was it? And I tell them, David Sonnenberg. And when I told them that, they go, no, he'll write his own motions and you'll never be able to afford it.
So he just took it.
Yeah.
So you made this movie,
and
they took it.
Well, I got it to that point.
Yeah.
It still needed to have the interviews.
Yes.
And so I remember when that happened, I said to him, we still need the interviews. And he said, no, we don't. It's enough the way it is.
Oh.
And I knew it wouldn't be. And so what happened is ultimately the interviews were done and not directed by Lee. But anyway, that all wound up happening. And so it's a great film. And the reason I didn't take it further or get really do anything more about it was that, like I said, that if there's a litigious atmosphere to something, distributors don't want that.
That's right.
And so I spent the time and effort about this for 8 years of my life.
So it was more important to you that the project get out there.
That it be done. And I knew that it wouldn't get there without the interviews.
And besides, they didn't get to hang out with James Brown.
Well, that up to the point of doing, I'll tell you those two quick things. Is that one, during the process, you wanted to get people, and so I would go and hunt down James Brown whenever he'd appear in New York, and eventually we wound up hooking up, and he'd call me on the phone. He was an amazing guy. One day, when the first time I went to see him, he's leaving, wanted me to go with him to a concert he was doing, and we smelled some guy smoking pot up the street. He giggles and goes, watch this, and he walks up to the guy, and the guy's facing the wall. He taps his shoulder. Guy turns around and he goes, put that down, down, and stomped out his joint. And I mean, he was just a goofy guy, but he was brilliant.
Yeah.
And I'd say fairly most interesting, uneducated person I've ever met, for sure. Amazing.
Force of nature.
Force of nature. Fantastic. And the last thing I'll tell you is the United Nations. In the process, same as going meeting him, I'm hooked up with a guy at the Zairian mission in New York, and Zwange Matunga, and I wound up being invited to the United Nations with Minister Bula from Zaire, and Don King was there. Don King comes up to me and goes, "You got my movie. You got my movie." And I'm shaking hands with him. Mr. Bula comes along, and I get a big hug from him because this is about Zaire, too. And then I realized I'm in the United Nations, and I've just shook hands with a guy who strangled somebody to death. And I got a hug from a guy that some claimed had killed many.
What, and quit show business?
No.
Yeah.
No way.
Well, we're out of time, Keith. It's funny because you've been working on this really interesting project about Buffalo, New York.
Yes.
And how they're being buffaloed. The people of Buffalo are being buffaloed by rich welfare queens who want to build a stadium for their big football franchise on the people's dime.
That is true.
So thank you for continuing to fight the fight and tell the real stories. Keith Robinson, our guest today on Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show. We'll see you next week, and also go to sexyboomershow.com if you want to hear some older shows. Lots of interesting conversations there. Thanks again. We'll see you next week.